Have a seat, man. Give it up one more time for Tommy Brown. We've cooped up in studios for how long, and we're like, oh, people, we love it, we love it. Thank you so much, everybody, for turning up on a beautiful day in Sydney. I heard that you guys have had like the worst weather recently, right? Well, look at us now. Look at us now. This man's CV is one that I think I will be endlessly jealous of, but also in awe of. Like, you have been such a mastermind behind a litany of collaborations, which works well because that's what we're here to talk about today. Victoria Monet, Ariana Grande, BLACKPINK. I could go on, but we're only here for Justin Bieber. we could literally go on, but perhaps we'll get into some of them today. But I think at the heart of it, what I really appreciate about your work is the consistency, but also this unshaking brand of authenticity. You know, like there's such a clear vision and identity with the projects that you've been a part of, and I think that that speaks to the way that you approach music and experience it yourself. So we really appreciate you coming through, sharing the gems of knowledge with such a talented cohort of artists here in Sydney. And I know I'm excited to see what comes out of these sessions. For you, Tommy, like just to begin with, how has your Sydney experience treated you? How has it been to mix with these artists and see what Australian music has to offer?
Well, thank you guys for having me. I think it's been amazing. Do you mind if I take my shoes off?
You can do whatever you like.
I'm very much in the shoes. But I love it. I think it's so much diversity and going in different rooms and hearing what everybody's doing, and everybody's incredible. And sometimes I don't have to be the biggest in the room because everybody has their own magic that they bring. So I really appreciate being invited here to meet with everybody.
Yeah. You were saying just earlier that it's important for you to pass on what you've been able to learn, because, you know, once we're not here anymore, who knows what we're leaving behind. Can you describe the experience of being able to share knowledge in this space? Because, I mean, for me, what I love about seeing this particular group is that we've got so many different personalities, so many different styles of music. Like, for me as a journalist, but as a fan, being able to see what journeys these artists have been on, whether it's York, whether it's Ashwarya, Tendo even, like seeing how these artists started out to where they are now is really exciting. So can you describe what it's been like to learn from them as much as it's been them learning from you?
100%. I feel like I like to sit back and just see what everybody does. I know a lot of people who like to be invasive with their knowledge, but I just like to share the stories that I've seen dealing with some of the biggest artists in the world.
Yeah.
And the previous biggest artists in the world. And I just like to share what I've learned from them, whether it works for somebody or not, but just to share what I learned. And I think me learning from them has been important because everybody's from different places. Yeah. So if I've never been there, I can't tell you what works there.
True.
So let me know. I could just try to put a little 808 under it or something and see what we can do.
And just build it from there. Again, this is a conversation that we kind of started having in Melbourne at the ARIA collab sessions there, but wanted to get your thoughts on it as well. Like, for Australian writers who, they might hit certain ceilings of success here, but we're kind of doing it with one hand behind our back, right? Because we're so cut off from the bigger markets. What do you think are some easy things for Australian writers and producers to do to sort of lessen or close that gap a bit?
I think the same money people spend on clothes is the same price as a flight. And the same money people spend on shoes is the same price as a hotel.
Yeah, no, true that.
So I feel like you got to reinvest in yourself and sometimes step back from what you love doing, and maybe you're not going to the steakhouse tonight because you're saving up to go to New Zealand or go to Korea or go to these different places to expand your brand.
Remember that, people. sometimes, you know, eat the cheaper cut of steak, you know what I mean? All right, cool. Well, look, again, I'm a nerd for this stuff, being able to be in the presence of people like yourself who have just, it feels like you've lived so many lives already, right?
I'm 76 years old.
I feel that on a soul level, my back feels that, my knees feel that, you know what I mean? But I do want to take it back a little bit, because if we just go through the different chapters of your career, like you were saying, you've seen the previous biggest stars in the world, you've seen the current wave, and now you're working with like almost like the next generation. If we go back to the beginning of, I guess, the Tommy Brown story in terms of production, the rooms that you were in, can you describe that early sensation of being taken under the wing of someone like Darkchild and coming up at such a crucial time for pop and R&B?
Yes, I'll take it back a little further. So when I was
go.
about 15 years old, it's a little dark. I hope y'all could kind of kick it with me. But when I was about 15, I like seen my dad pass away, and there's no musical talent in my family at all. And so a few days later, I was like, I have to find something to kind of take my attention away from what I'm dealing with. And I downloaded Fruity Loops, and I started making beats. And there's a guy named Apso in the back. I would walk to his house every day and play him these beats. And I thought I was like Kanye or one of those people. And I was like, and then I just kept moving and moving. I packed my stuff and moved to Atlanta.
Yep.
And then when I got there, I was like, I'm gonna make 20 beats. And there used to be spindles of CDs, 50 CDs. And I burnt one at a time, took like 10 minutes each. And I passed them out every single night at open mic nights, and that's kind of how it started. And I worked with a lot of local rap artists like 2 Chainz and Ludacris in Atlanta. And then I got a call from Rodney Jerkins, and I didn't know who he was. I'm like, I don't know who you are. I got a 10-song deal. Like, I'm him. Yeah. But I moved to LA, and I started working with him, and what he taught me was like how to craft a song.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot from being there, and I was the underdog of the entire team. So it was really, really good learning experience.
Totally. It's, I don't know, like his music and the touch that he had on so many different records and so many different groups and artists back then. Like, I remember, like, if you're an R&B fan, if you're any sort of adjacent hip hop fan during that time, you remember the Darkchild drop at the beginning of a Tony Braxton joint, you know, the Destiny's Child beats, everything. Like, I can only imagine what it would have been like as a young artist to be stepping into these rooms. Like, that almost would have been like a, you know, Willy Wonka chocolate factory moment, you know what I mean? Like, doors opened. Did you feel like your seniors at that time were holding that door open for you? Like, can you describe the spirit of encouragement that you maybe felt during those early days?
I won't even say encouragement. For me, I had the strategy.
Yeah.
I said, so if he does this every single day, if he shows up at 11 a.m., I'm going to show up at 10. And I'm going to grab his bags out of the car, and I'm going to bring his laptop into the studio.
True.
If he's leaving at 11, I'll leave at 1. And then when I get home, I'm going to go and write songs until I fall asleep. So I said, as long as I outwork him, I could find myself somewhere in the spectrum.
And how old were you at this point?
22.
See, now setting a bar. Setting a bar. That's cool. So, okay, early 20s, it's a formative time for anybody trying to work out who they are, much less figuring out what their sound is. Do you remember a point where things started to click a bit more for you, where you were just like, oh, I'm on my own rhythm?
I'm still looking for him to click. But yeah, so it was like a time where he was like, you know what? 3 of us are going to set up in a room and we're going to do 10 ideas that sound the same.
Interesting, okay.
Over 2 days. And I said, okay. And he's like, I'm going to do the piano, y'all do the drums. They're all going to sound the same. We're going to pick the best one. And we did a few that were good, and there was one that he was like, Kanye is coming to get this. He loves it. And I was like, he came out like 808s and Heartbreaks or something. And I was like, yo, this is going to be big. And it was a DVD sitting outside, and I seen it every day for like a week, and I'm like, he never came to get it. I was like, it's not happening. And then one day the DVD was gone, and nobody said anything. And what I would do is, there was a website, I don't know if it's still around, called CD Now, where it would give every release for the week. And I would go and listen to every song that came out on each CD. It's when like all of the piracy was happening. So I did it for free.
Like we all did.
Yeah.
Many a computer virus entering the chat.
And I was on iTunes where they used to give the 10-second snippets, and I heard a song on the Black Eyed Peas, and I was like, hey, Ronnie, it sounds like this is our song. And he was like, oh, let me check. And it was Just Can't Get Enough by the Black Eyed Peas, and it ended up being my first hit.
Yes, thank you. Like, what a way to start. What a way to start. And that in itself is a lesson, right? Because it's not like it was handed to you on a plate by being like, oh, this is what happens when you make a hit. Like, all it takes is hearing it, or, you know, finding it yourself through these different channels. And I feel like even fast forwarding to now, a lot of artists, especially independent artists, are still coming up against these same situations, you know what I mean? So I feel like, if anything, that's just proving that it's an industry old thing that people have to deal with. But from there, as the profile continues to grow, the collaborators continue to grow as well. Did you find that navigating these rooms, it got easier, or do you feel like as the industry was changing around you, there were more roadblocks that were coming up?
I think what I wanted to do was work with the people who wanted to work with me. So whether it was like, it's funny now because they're big names, but it was a time I remember when I worked with Ariana, this A&R called me and was like, I love this song, we'll cut it on this girl from Nickelodeon. She's like a 16-year-old girl. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's dope. and he's like, but she's working with Nick Jonas. And I was like, oh shit, I'm about to do the Jonas Brothers album. It's over. I made it. So I got there and we did some songs I didn't like. But I met her and was like, yo, I like what you do. I just think you need to go a little more retro. Like a little more like chords, and it's too pop.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay. And at the time I was trying to figure out money, like on the way to the session, my engine blew on my car. So then it was like, it wasn't like an Uber time. It was like, who can give me a taxi or drop me off?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that works. And then I had my friend who came to me and said, I have this other kid, can he sleep on the studio couch? He's talented, but he doesn't have anywhere to stay. I said, well, that's fine. And he ended up being Travis Scott. And then I was working with Ariana, but I'm still like, I need to work with Lady Gaga or Kanye. But then I learned the value of working with the people who's around me and building that platform so it lasts forever.
Totally. See? You could have the next Travis Scott sleeping on your couch in the studio. You never know.
In here.
You never know. You never know. Well, I wanted to save Ariana for a little bit later, but since you brought her up, let's talk about this little artist. She's gonna do great things, I feel.
It's so soon enough.
It's gonna click.
She's gonna have a wicked career.
I know. Hey, and that's on holding space. No, we love it. So you know, your credits are found like right throughout her catalog. Positions and Thank You Next, obviously huge moves. But just to speak on, you know, you've worked with her since around 2013, I want to say, like around that time. Can you tell us a bit about the strengths of being able to work with an artist literally from the ground up and like seeing their peaks and troughs? Can you tell us what it's like to watch an evolution from the perspective of being a producer?
I love it because you get to see them grow, especially when you have a good relationship with them and you have a real friendship with them. You get to see the mistakes and you get to see them fix the mistakes or try to work their way, and they might lick a donut, but then you understand how to rebound from that. You know what I mean? And takes emotional intelligence, but you get to see the peaks and valleys of what that is, and that's important, especially when you're sticking by artists.
Yeah. And how has, if we take Ariana as an example, who has had like musically a number of different directions too, which I think is brave to do, period, but especially in pop music, sometimes when you have an album that just hits so hard, I would assume that it could be a little bit daunting to be like, I want to follow this other path and just pray that it hits. How has working with an artist like her, I guess, inspired you in terms of the different directions or approaches that you've since taken with your music?
I think for me, when everybody goes right, I go left. I never want to go and sit in a place where everybody else sits.
Yeah.
Like, if everybody's sitting over here, I want to go sit on the other side.
Yeah.
Like, I would be the person that's sitting in the back of the room. And like, well, why is he sitting back there? Like, that's just me. So when we're creatively doing things, and I always encourage her. I remember one time she called me and was like, I want Wrld to do this whole album, and I know we do everything together, and I want to see how you feel. And I said, I want you to express how you feel creatively.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay. And then she came to the house, played the album, was like, let me get like 3 songs. I was like, okay, I love that. But, I want everybody that I work with to express how they feel. You may feel, I want to do a dark album because I'm going through a sad time, and you don't do that. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
I want you to experience that.
I guess that speaks to the trust that always has to be there, not just as professionals, but as humans, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're dealing with somebody who's on the other end of the microphone, on the other end of the writing process. And I think that's why you've been able to maintain the relationships you have,
Yeah, I mean, I want everybody to be happy. I don't want to come in and force my opinion, and somebody's like, I don't like that. I don't want to do that.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. So for a lot of us in this room who have been following the Tommy Brown law, aka me, specifically Ariana Grande is obviously a big name. Victoria Monet is, she's everything to me, man. But like also it makes sense as to why you two are so close, because she just seems like down, like so grounded, so down to earth. And from what I've been able to read and see online, the trajectory that you two have had has kind of been in parallel, like timeline-wise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about working with someone like her, like cutting your teeth at the same time? Like, how does sharing that same passion and hunger influence the work that you create when you're young and coming up?
Well, we've been cool. I almost feel like she was like 20 years old, and she always wanted to be an artist.
Yeah.
So I told her, I was like, we had a conversation one day, and she was like, I really, really want to do this artist thing. And I said, look, write 300 songs. And she's like, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, okay, let's do it.
Hey, damn.
And so we were doing like 5 songs a day. There were days we slept in the studio. There were days we just did so much work. And when I had the first Ariana sessions, I took her to the session, and the publisher calls me. You brought somebody with you to the studio. And I was like, yeah, she's just chilling. She has to go. And it's funny that she turns around and she's been a long-term collaborator with Ariana.
Yeah.
But I knew, I was like, they link.
It could be something, yeah. And then again, that's the spirit of like not gatekeeping either. Like if you've got the foresight to be like, this person and this person would work, even just on a human level, like there could be something there. Who knows what can come of it? You know what I mean? I feel like that's something that in the Australian industry I've known from working across different genres. There is still that spirit of gatekeeping. Like if somebody feels like they're onto something hot, or they're working with people who may be on a certain wave, I don't know if it's a tall poppy thing, I don't know if it's, just feeling like we need to be consistently guarded. There is still that sense of that. So I'm glad that these sorts of things exist, because it's breaking those walls down, you know what I mean?
It's tough because you know what it is? It's working out of fear.
Yeah.
When you work in fear,
oh, totally.
It's tough. Like, I don't want to stand between 2 people, because that means I have to have double the conversations. I don't have time for that.
Also true.
Y'all go to lunch.
See, this is why I knew we would get along. Who just has that? No, it's very true. This kind of leads into what I wanted to ask you about next, which is like working across genres. I mean, you mentioned working with people like 2 Chainz and Ludacris back in the beginning, legends of the rap game, and then obviously moving forward into more recent history with like the Ariana stuff, legend of the pop game as well. When you work across genres, how important is it for you to keep open-minded with what may come out of them? And what would you recommend, how would you recommend aspiring producers do the same? If they're, they might come from a heavier background, but they're really loving what's happening in an R&B space. Like, what were some tips you could give?
I think it's all about culture. Culture is the most important thing, especially when you're dealing with music. Like, I can go in with anybody from BLACKPINK and say, you know what, I do pop music and this is a pop smash and this is what I think. No, don't forget that Korean culture is also so important.
Yeah.
So you have to go and like, how can I put this together?
True.
People can't go in selfishly. You have to go in and be open to who they are and understand and dissect them as an artist before you're pushing your narrative on the artist because you're just so good at making beats or you're so good at writing songs. Nobody cares. Like, to be honest, like you could be as good as you want, but the world loves what the world wants.
Yeah. It's kind of, I always used to say that, especially when it comes to mentoring or being in any position where you can impart, like leave your knowledge with other people, the mindset of like when you go in, don't assume that you're improving this person. You go in and you want to work with them. Like it has to be reciprocated. For the aspiring writers in the room who may not necessarily be part of the ARIA collab process this time around, can you speak a little bit to the mindset of like, we're working in isolation a lot of the time and we feel like our stuff isn't necessarily getting heard. How do up-and-coming artists and producers get over that hurdle?
I think you step outside of your comfort zone. I feel like a lot of people, even when it comes to social media, and I talk to artists or producers or whatever it is, it's like, how does my little cousin use social media more than you? And they're not doing nothing but stupid stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like stepping outside of the box, and I feel like a lot of times everybody wants to be cool. And I remember when I was in high school in like 1964 in the 1900s.
Yeah.
There was only like 7 people that were actually popular and cool. And when I look back now, they're not popular or cool anymore. So it's like we're all in this facade of being cool and being too cool to do things. I say like expand and be willing to do anything you need to do to kind of reach the goal you want to reach. I remember flying to Korea and they're like, wow, who are you here working with? I was like, nobody. I just booked a hotel for a week and I'm gonna try to go in any building I can.
Yeah.
And it's taking those strides or figuring out how to put that together to build what you need to build. Like, go outside of your comfort zone.
I like that. It's something that I feel like is so easy to forget as well. We had some questions that came through via email, so
I'm scared.
Let's explain what a
it's
CD
not my
is.
child.
No. That's for our after dark session tonight. No, we're in a room full of okay, so give me a quick show of hands. Who here is a songwriter or producer? Excellent. Okay, so this will probably apply more to you. Tommy, what makes the best top liner in a room?
Wow, that's a good question. Experience. I think for me, if you spend hours and hours developing your craft, you could be better than the next person in the room. Or you study. I don't know. I think it takes time because like T-Ron Thomas, who won Songwriter of the Year last year, and also Amy Allen are 2 friends of mine. And I feel like they went through, especially T-Ron, because I'm really close to T-Ron. I remember in the beginning of his career, he was doing Rihanna and so many things, and then he was cold for years. couldn't get a song off.
Wow.
And now he's like the biggest thing in the game. And I just feel like he'll come to my studio at 11 p.m., 12 midnight. I'm like, what you want to do? He's like, pull up 5 beats. And he'll do 5 songs and fast. And he's like, well, whatever one's best, just send it off. And he's like, today's my 3rd session. I worked with Lizzo earlier, Dr. Luke in the afternoon, and I just stopped past and did these songs here. And I'm like, that's why he's the best.
Yeah.
People be like, oh no, I take Sundays off and Valentine's Day. I remember on Valentine's Day, I was like, where you at? He's like, oh, I'm in the studio. I'm like, what about your wife? Oh no, I sent $2,000 worth of flowers. The kids brought them in. Oh, I love her. She's gonna love the new house.
Period. That's foresight. That is foresight. And that's like also investing in your wife's general spirit.
You gotta be able to cut the, like, I read this book one time and it was like the 2 hours a day is the most important, and that's the 2 hours like people, maybe you're scrolling on Instagram, maybe you're watching TV.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 hours that change your career.
Yeah.
So if you can go and focus those 2 hours on doing what you're supposed to do, if you want to be successful, it changes everything.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. And the next one we've got, do pop producers take outside top lines for big pop tracks anymore?
I do think so, but I think you gotta kind of schmooze your way into the circles.
Yeah, okay.
Like, so if, let's say I was somebody in Ariana's circle giving her songs, it would be smart to be in a relationship with the people around, but that also takes the studying of, I wonder who's around this person. Like, let me send this to the label for the Weeknd. It's not happening. Who's around the Weeknd? How can I? He gulps hair every Saturday. I've seen it on his Instagram. I'm gonna go play golf here away for, hey, I know, do you ever play? I want to treat you to a round. Like, you gotta understand how to get around the circles in 2025.
Totally. That's really interesting because, you know, we're in an age of DM sliding like hard.
Good luck.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, what do you think is less successful now?
I think it is. I think you got to go and give a little bit more effort. But
Yes.
I also feel it's a lot less effort than I had to give coming up, because my only outlook was passing out beat CDs that got dropped on the ground. You know what it feels like to get a beat CD of yours frisbee? I remember I gave it to an artist, and I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, I gave it to him, and he threw it, and I watched it hit the back window and go to the back of his car. I was like,
Damn.
I was like, yo, I'm never going to make it.
It was 10 minutes I spent making that. No, that's
No, really.
that's insane, man. People these days will never have to know.
And
That's
they're
trouble.
like, they didn't answer my DM. I'm like, that took you 10 seconds to
That
do.
is a very good point. It's a very good point.
That was your effort?
Yeah, level up. Level up. I did want to spend some time talking about music discovery with you, because as well as producing and being in these rooms, you've also got your eye open for what's coming next. You've had experience in working with major labels, but also big genre collectives as well, like Good Music, Grand Hustle Records as well. How has seeing artists develop their own sort of labels and collectives inspired your own journey in this space, particularly with Champagne Therapy Music Group? Shout outs.
I'm sorry, I crossed out Berkeley. I feel so bad about that, but
Don't.
it's a new era.
It's a new era. Yeah, tell me a little bit about the inspirations in founding your own label imprint, first of all.
I think I just seen so many people develop. Excuse me. But I think also I wanted to create a compound, a creative playground where somebody who has zero going on can work with somebody who has hits and teach each other. You're from Ohio, you're from Sweden, Australia, and everybody can kind of mix and learn from each other. And then I sat back and I was like, I accidentally created something.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a leader never knows they're a leader until they turn around and there's people behind them.
Definitely.
And I feel like for me, that's what I discovered. And I was like, oh, we're actually building a thing. And I want to give everybody around me, like, it's like they never let me in the door. And then accidentally, we'll talk about that too. But accidentally, I got into the door, and I was like, let me leave my foot here and hold it open as long as I can for everybody to run in behind me.
And that's how it grows. That's how it grows. And it kind of ties back to what we were talking about before in terms of like bringing all the lessons, bringing all the, the taught moments from the failures, from the missteps, the things that you've learned from, bringing them in so that that struggle isn't, or those mistakes aren't necessarily made by people who are coming in behind you. This idea of holding the door open, you know? Okay, so around 2018, you launched this label. What's exciting you the most about where it's heading now in 2025 when you look back at where it began?
Well, I mean, as creatives who are in here, I'm sure y'all do a song a day, maybe. Say a song every other day. Why let it sit in a laptop when you can go and say, okay, this person has followers or uses the internet or does this, like, or we could just upload the songs. Let's keep uploading the songs. Why just let them sit on the hard drive? Because at the end of the year, we have 1,000 songs and then we forget about them and do another 1,000 songs. Like, let's just upload them. There's this art. Hey, I don't want to do a deal with you for 10 years. Let's do a deal for a year and a half. I'll put out 3 projects on you. If we have success, we continue. If we don't, maybe it wasn't the fit. And I want to just upload the songs. So why just sit there and do songs that just sit there? I don't want to do that.
So it's like a spirit of nurturing and again, building trust.
Yes.
Right? So I think, the music industry has always had its sort of pitfalls in terms of how it deals with younger artists. You know, we hear the horror stories, right? You know, signing to multi-project deals, but there's no safety net, there's no support. But what I love about artist-led collectives like this is like you know what you want to do, and you know that the artistry has to be at the core of everything, which I think builds a roadmap to success anyway, even if it's not the sort of traditional models of success that has come before. You're building something new, which I think is great.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's just consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency is what pays off.
Totally.
If you're not consistent, I always tell artists, it's like your partner. I hear everybody say that over here, your partner. Like, whether your boyfriend or girlfriend, like, treat the music like that. If you only go see, and the internet as well, if you only go see them once a week, you're not in a relationship with them. They're dating so many other people.
A situationship.
But if you're seeing them as consistently as you're seeing your real partner, that's how you develop a relationship with the music or the internet to start growing what you're doing. People want to get on the internet once a week and be like, oh, Thursday's my sweet spot. Good luck.
Good luck with that. Now, when it comes to discovering new artists, like regardless of if you're looking at potential new collaborators or artists to sign, or just as a music fan yourself, like what would generally catch your ear? Like, what's a good way to get your attention musically?
I think something that's different. I always say that things that have a fingerprint. Because there's so many things that are the same. That's a glove. like, or something that sounds like it has a fingerprint. Like, oh, I know who did this. I remember coming up for me hearing the Swiss Beats and the Max Martins and the Kanye's and the Timberlands. They always had a fingerprint with the music that they did.
Yeah, yeah.
As a producer for
Yes.
me. So I was like, I want to be something like that. Like, when I come in the room, I want to know what I'm in the room for. And somebody comes in like, I want something like DJ Mustard. I'm like, well, call DJ Mustard. What you call me for?
True. And when it comes to your own sound or like your own signature, when you take stock or give time to just reflect on what you've been able to do, which I hope that you are able to do, you know, what are you proudest of in terms of like the body of work, the legacy that is continuing to grow, but what are you proudest of?
I like longevity instead of legacy. Because legacy is when you're gone.
Yeah.
Longevity is sustained. So I feel like I like longevity better than legacy. I want to be here for a long time, as long as I can. And bringing the people when I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I'm like, he does.
He does.
Come in the room with me.
Yeah.
You sure he's going to let me in the room? well, just come until he kicks you out.
I like that. Come in until you get kicked out.
Let's work together.
Yeah, no, period. I wanted to take this moment to open things up. Does anyone have any questions while we're here?
It's not my kid.
This isn't going to be an episode of Mari, don't stress. Any questions or comments? Yes.
It's always one, then more come.
I know, that's it. We'll regret this.
You always have to be the first one because then it helps everyone else to be confident for the next one. This is super in my self-interest because I'm a manager. Can I get a feel for how important your wider team was, especially the non-creative team? Because I feel like that's another component. You've got something ready, you think it's hot, you think it's ready to go. The next step, if it's not your own hustle, have you had that kind of support structure around you to help the hustle continue in the business sense?
Okay, I'll say it's rare because I'm a little different than everybody because I'm a little crazy. So my thoughts are I say all of y'all run at 30 miles per hour. So I need 4 of y'all because I run at 100. And all of us together can do damage. But if I only have one person that's running 30 and I'm running 100, it's not gonna work. So I feel like it's very important when you're a manager, you need somebody to think about you before you wake up and after you go to sleep. And that's the toughest job because managers really aren't necessarily paid until people start making money. So it's a very tough job, but the proper manager that does the job will reap the benefits long-term if the artist is loyal or the producer or writer is loyal.
Good question. Anybody else? Okay,
I'm
yes.
here.
Yes.
Man, you mentioned you started off with Fruity Loops. I'm just wondering what software you're using now, and what's the mix between virtual instruments and recording live instruments with your producing now?
Well, I grew up on the MPC as well, so that's been a weapon of choice since the beginning. I worked at a grocery store and saved up $600 and bought an MPC with no instructions and had to learn how to use that with no help, which was the hardest thing of all time. I didn't know it didn't have speakers. I was now I gotta save up for headphones. So now I still use the MPC and I also use Ableton. I just kind of use what's needed for the project. So if I need guitar players or piano players, they're what instrument do you play? I was my instrument's the MPC. That's not an instrument. To me, it is. So that's my main weapon of choice. Walking into a room, if I don't know what I'm going to do and I'm scared and nervous, I'm just going to bring that because it's going to work.
I had this image of you being yes, I've got my head around the MPC, and you're wait, damn it.
I was so upset. I was yo, so you need headphones to hear this? And then you go get headphones.
Which is a whole different,
Oh no, everybody has headphones in their house. I'm okay, I got headphones downstairs. Are you? And I'm why doesn't the headphone thing fit?
It's the worst. It's the worst.
It's you need a piece to put it in. I'm what is this?
And then it's just building out from there. Yes.
Before you real nonchalant, you're oh, what are you guys doing? Writing one song a day? And I don't know how many other people in the room were oh shit, that's an intimidating standard. What does that look like logistically?
I mean, I'm gonna go back to me being insane. So depending on what era I am in the week, because my eras come during the week and everybody's who is he gonna be today? And I'll come in and be okay, I just want to write 10 songs today. They're 10 songs. I'm yeah, pull up 10 loops. And I'm just going to say how I feel 10 different ways. But guess what? Number 7 was amazing. So it's it doesn't have to be a perfect song every time. If you get the idea and you're number 7's the one, then you go and flush that out. And then you make that I don't care if you spend 2 weeks on that record, you found the one that you needed to find. I love when I argue with somebody, or I'm do I want to cry? Or am I excited? And then I get to go to the studio and like pull up all the emotional loops. I got something to say. And I feel like that's where let's say a song a day comes from.
Just to expand on that a little bit, like, has there been a moment, and you might not be able to isolate one specifically, but when you're in the trenches with an artist, developing ideas, and obviously when we hear the same music, we're interpreting them in different ways, like we're hearing different emotional beats. Has there been a time where you're working on a project with an artist, they've got a vision for it, and you're just like, I can't see where it's coming from, or vice versa? How do you get over that hump?
If it doesn't align, it doesn't align. I was in the studio one time where an artist was dressed up to be a certain artist, and it was a different artist. And they were like, "Oh, we got the last names mixed up." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I went in the room and said hello, and I came out, and I was like, "Is that girl that said like the bad word online that she wasn't supposed to say?" And they're like, "Yeah, that is her." I was like, I can't do that. So like sometimes when it doesn't align, it doesn't align, no matter how big the artist is. Because sometimes no is your most powerful weapon.
I say that all the time. Esty.
Hi, I'm just curious to understand if you had any kind of preconceived ideas of what you were walking into in terms of an Australian sound or an Australian work ethic or temperament, and now when you go back home, what do you tell them about the Australian sound or the experience that you've had in the studio and the way that we work and the music that we put out and the drive that we have?
I would say you got to work harder than them because they are working hard. The entire time. They're working so hard. I'm like, man, I'm jet lagged. I'm tired. But guess what? I got to stay here and work because they're working. And I'm not going to try to let anybody down that I work with. I want to go and give the best that I can give at the time. And everybody's so incredible. So I want to be incredible. I was on the phone earlier today. It was so crazy. It was a call in India. I was like, yo, I'm over here working and we're doing this and we're doing that. It's a big artist over there. And she was like, just make sure you give them your all. I was like, I love that. And I was like, all right, cool. Let me make sure I get 2 hours of sleep tonight. So I can...
Yeah. Hello, Tommy.
Hello.
Hello. I would love to hear a story of like the ultimate studio experience ever. Like, I know you've probably got like a lot of experiences and, you know, probably quite varied experiences, but like, does a moment come to mind where you witnessed something so special and incredible, and in that moment you were like, I'm going to remember this forever?
I mean, I remember most of them forever because they're all everything's crazy. It's like I have so many songs, and whether they're hits or not is so crazy. I mean, for me, one of the ones that stand out is the Thank You Next story. So I called Ari and we were going through Mac Miller Pass. It was like a whole thing for all of us. He's from my hometown. So it was like a whole thing. And then I went to New York and stayed with her for a few days. Then I went back home. And then they called me. It's like, well, you know, she really hasn't left the house. And I texted her. I said, let me tell you something. The next thing you do is going to be the biggest thing you do in your life. And she was like, you think so? I said, yes. She said, well, set it up. I said, cool. So I invited a bunch of songwriters who were part of my team: Victoria, Taylor Parks, Social House. Before they were Social House, it was a bunch of people. And we go to New York, and we get there. I'm like, I tell the assistant, I'm like, order 30 bottles of champagne. I want pizzas here every day. I said, nobody here is on a diet. Nobody here has any restrictions. We're just going to throw paint. And I remember the day we did Thank You Next. My grandma passed the day I got to New York, and we were there for a week, so I was flying back and forth. And nobody really knew that. But I came back, and she's like, oh, I need an idea to do. And I went in the studio. It's like a little booth, and Social House was working in there, and they played me a loop, and I said, can you speed it up? And I took it into the room, and Ari was like, I really like this. And she's like, but I don't know what to do to it. And Victoria was like, you always say thank you next. She's like, I would never do a song called Thank You Next. And Victoria's like, thank you, next. And so I was like, Victoria, just go in there and lay down the vocal, and we'll pull it up later if we like it. And Art's like, no, I'll go do the vocal. And then as we're going, I'm like, oh shit, this is happening in real time. Like, she's saying people's names on this song. Yeah. And a moment that I will love forever.
Damn, I didn't know Mac Miller was from your hometown.
Pittsburgh.
Damn. In fact, that's a whole other conversation I could
It's a
go
whole
into.
thing.
It's a whole thing. We don't have the time for it. We've got time for one more though.
Hi.
Yes.
I have a question. I'm 99% sure there was 2 versions of Thank You Next, and one with the names and one without the names, right? Yes.
That's a fact.
So how did you have that conversation to persuade somebody to be that honest in their writing, and like how do you persuade artists to like kind of just take the moment that they're having?
Okay, so because Demi was around during that time. You were in LA, and we were doing
Like I was in the room.
Yeah, she was there because I was working on the album for like 2 months. The album was done. I was just being crazy. But so we did the original version, and she had somebody come in and hear it and was like, well, I don't really like that you're saying names in the song. So I got to being crazy. And she was like, I think we should change it. And I was like, you know what? I think you're right. We should change it and take the names out. And Victoria and Taylor were so bad at me. And I was like, I'm leaving, just play me the version in the morning. And they were like, why would you tell her to take the names out when the names make it a hit and da-da-da? I said, just write a bad version. So when she comes back in, she doesn't like it.
That's awesome.
So they wrote a bad version and was like, I don't know about this one.
I love that so hard. That's knowing how to read a room as well. That's knowing how to read a room.
They were so mad.
I can imagine. Very distinct personalities, and like smart too, because again, we've been talking about how obviously how clever people like Ariana and Victoria are. Taylor Parks, in my opinion, is such an underrated songwriter as much as she's an underrated musician. Like,
She's so good.
she's so good. So just having those people in your orbit, I think is, and extending that out to you guys as well. Like when you see the talent around you in your community, like there is no shame in leaning into that and being like, what can I learn from you? You know what I mean? Because you never know. I mean, they could blow up to be the biggest thing, or they could be like the biggest asset in your songwriting team, but just also in your wider community as well. It's so important.
It is. I got another like little cool story. Are y'all familiar with John Bellion? Anybody here know who that is? So I mean, I'm a fan. So
Totally.
I reached out to somebody who knew him, and I was like, I want to bring him to LA. We're doing Zara Larsson. And he was like, I'm down to do it. So we extended this hotel, and he did a few days, and Zara Larsson didn't show up the first day. She didn't show up the second day. And I'm like, this is a waste of time. So I was in the booth. I had my workout bike that I had everybody bring around. They're like, oh, Tommy's working out. I never got skinny. But they accidentally routed my Frank's computer, who's a producer who's incredible, to the booth. Like it was a bass guitar speaker in the booth. And they were trying to find sound. He played some chords. And I jumped off the bike and I was like, I went in the room. I was like, what was that? He's like, oh, I'm just trying to find sound. I was like, no, let it loop. This is really good. And me, him, and John Bellion were just talking. Well, me and Franks were talking more. John Bellion was like sitting back, looking at the sky. I'm like, okay, we're just chilling today. And John Bellion gets up and he says, I got it. I said, you got what? He said, I want to record. So he goes in the booth and sings wholly, almost top to bottom.
Damn.
And then he was like, I wrote this song for my wife. I want to keep this. I'm going to put this out. I said, okay, cool, no problem. 2 months later, well, when he recorded it, I asked everybody to leave the room. I said, can everybody leave the room for a second? And it was me, John, and Franks, and I said, close the session and don't play this for anybody.
Yeah.
It's a hit song.
Yeah.
And so John was like, I'm gonna do it for my wife. And I said, okay, that's special. And he called me and said, Justin heard the song and wants to do it. And he recorded it, and it was just such a beautiful song. And like, that's the story of how that song happened. It's all accidents.
It's all accidents.
It's never when you're planning, I'm going to do a hit song. It doesn't happen like that.
Not at all. Again, just keep an open mind, because you never know when they're going to hit, I guess. Also, keep a workout bike around, you never know.
I'm telling you, I was in there pedaling hard and nothing happened. Still trying.
It's a journey, it's a process. It's a
Yeah,
process. Well, just to finish off our time tonight, Tommy, I know that you still got some time left in Australia before we lose you. Sad times. What are you looking forward to taking back with you to the US of this experience?
I mean, I don't even think I need to take anything back. I want to leave everything I can.
Yeah.
So I want to go in and try to empower everybody I can walk into a room with. I want to leave everybody with a little piece of me, and hopefully it inspires. I don't want to take anything from anybody. I just want to leave everything I can.
Well, I think you've definitely done that here tonight. So I can only thank you so much, and I think I speak on behalf of everyone here as well. Like, just being able to learn from you, hear the stories, and also gain a little insight into longevity, as you were saying, but also resilience and endurance too. It's really special. So thank you so much. And we can't wait to hear what comes out of these sessions.
I think
money.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great. And I always tell people the story like of with Ari. I worked on all the albums, but I didn't have a single until the 5th album. I had so many special records with her that the fans loved. I watched her on tour, but I went on tour with her one time and I seen them perform a song and I said, I want the last song. I want the song with the fireworks and the fucking
Yeah.
And so, and I went to the studio and so many people were like, just do something else. You're never going to get a single. You're not going to make any money there. And the opportunity came and we did a mega smash and I haven't looked back since.
There you go. Please give it up for Tommy Brown, everybody. Thank you to Aria.